Okay, I've got 12 minutes to cover this, and I'm trying to make it short. This method works. It can be proven mathematically and statistically to work. However, before it will work for you, you must learn how to roll a pellet. If you don't know how to do that, then the only thing it'll do for you is take a measurement of how well you can roll a pellet. Don't want to prove that for you right now. There are 4 legs, you will see. They are not equal lengths. I have mine set up so that the tallest one is here, the next tallest here, the next tallest here, the next tallest here. The reason that I do that is I want the bed to slope from this corner to this corner. Now, you can arrange those in a different way if you want to. Whatever it takes to get you the longest roll that you can get. Now, on the internet you will find files for a bail that you can put up here on this end that you can use to get a perfect release once you learn how to use the bail. Over time I gravitated to a different method, and so you will find at the bottom of that files list on printables a set of indexes that are all in one file. I think this is a mixed set of indexes. Each index has a little nub on it. You can barely see that one, probably there. And a number. Bigger the number, the bigger the index, or the dimple, or whatever you want to call that little notch that you touch the pellet against. When you're rolling a pellet, the notch should fit the waist of the pellet like that, or a little better, okay? What you're trying to do is get a notch that fits into the waist of the pellet such that you can't move the pellet forward and backward against this wall. A 6 or a 7 works pretty good for a 25 JSB, 25 grain JSB. Now, this is about where it worked for me. You could certainly do better. First, you want to learn how to roll that pellet. Okay, that's the object of the game. Learn how to roll the pellet. So you use the same pellet, you roll it over and over again. You notice it went into that box, so it went right off the edge right there. I'm just going to move it to there. That's where I'll be putting that. So this will go on that. Why? Because that box is about the right size. You can roll them all into the same box. You need to get 9 out of 10 in the same box before you ever even start rolling pellets, just to convince yourself that you still know how to roll pellets. So there's 2 in the box. The first one was an indexer, so you can't count it. So that's 1 in a row. Two in a row. You get the idea. I'm not going to waste your time. The point is this. The method works. You can set this table up in a number of ways. But one of the things that you want to get is speed. You can roll pellets twice. You can drop a bunch into this box and then re-roll that box and toss out the flyers. This method works, and I like to say birds of a feather flock together. That's what's going on here. The diameter of the head, the diameter of the skirt, the distance between the head and the skirt, all of these things come into play. Now people will tell you, well, what if the angle of the cone of the pellet is the same, but the pellet is smaller or larger by a little bit? That's why the index exists, because 2 cones that are not exactly the same will not roll to exactly the same place if you start them rolling in the same spot. They'll roll on the same diameter, or on this. They roll on a different radius, even if they have the same slope of the side. Anyway, I'm not going to talk a bunch of math here because nobody wants to hear it anyway. Okay? That's all you have to do, but you have to do that every time for a while till you know how to roll the pellet. Once you have that, then you start sorting pellets. Now that one rolls to there. Well, what are you going to do? How do you find out where they're going to roll to? Well, you take your catch box and you start rolling pellets. Once you know you're rolling them well, okay? Once you know you're rolling them well, then you start rolling pellets. Okay, you rolled 20 or 30. This presumes, of course, that I know what I'm doing with rolling. That I'm not. I haven't rolled in a long time. But what I'm doing here is I'm trying to build up. Where are they actually going? Well, that one went clear off there. When they do that, drop them in there. Okay. The object of this is. Okay, there's one that went in the middle, and he just barely went, but he went, and so we're going to count him. All right, come on. Sometimes you have to, pellets have little flat spots in them, things like that. This does notice those, okay? But what I'm trying to do here is establish where the middle of this. That's the wrong way. Where the middle of this is. Alright, eventually, if I've rolled 100 or so, I'll know where the middle of it, where the most likely place for the pellet to roll off the table is. Once you find that, mark it so you don't have to find it again. Now that you've done that, and you know where the middle of the box is, and so I'm saying that, you know, I already had it, I already had that marked, but it's been a long time. Okay, you see most of them, these were already sorted, but just the same, out of a box of pellets, 2/3 of them should fall towards the middle. And so if you roll a whole box of pellets and it only filled up these 5, well then 2/3 are here, 1/3 is here, 1/3 is here, 1/6, 1/6, 1/6, 1/6, and 1/3. Okay, you take all those out of that, take those and you take those, you've separated your pellets into 3 groups, and those 3 groups will all shoot about the same. They will shoot to a different point. Now I'm trying to get a lot of information covered quickly because you guys are far above me as far as the class of shooter that you are. But you know, being able to shoot well doesn't make you a scientist, and being a scientist doesn't make you able to shoot well. So I'm not ever going to say, I'm not going to go into your bailiwick and try to tell you how to do what you know how to do way better than I do. But what I will say to you is this: I can prove to you mathematically that Harry in Oz was dead on when he invented this. That I don't care who tells you they invented it, Harry did it first, and it works. And if you just keep doing this, learn how to roll that pellet, learn how to watch it as it comes off of there, because you'll begin to be able to see when you've got a bad roll going on, and you can just catch the pellet and roll it again. Okay, and a nice large roll is what you want. And there's any number of places around this that you can put that to get that roll. Now, as far as your thickness of your plate is concerned, I am not positive, but I think that it's a 5mm plate that you need to get. This is a 1/4" plate, and I made this one before I drew up the files for the other one. If I didn't mention that in the write-up, I will address it in the write-up later today, because I'm updating that information since you guys have demonstrated some interest. Guys, there's an enormous discussion about this on Airgun Nation, and wherein there was arguments left and right, insults left and right, and people being general jackasses about the science because it violated the ignorance that they had built up over years and years and years